Hey, it's Nicole from Outerinnerspace, and in this video we're talking about syncing your work schedule to your phases of your menstrual cycle. So this idea is mainly framed around people who work for themselves or at least set their own hours. And I'm one of these people, and I'm very lucky to be able to do this as an astrologer and a researcher, to be able to set the pace for my workflow. So these are just some ideas which might be helpful for you in your business practice and how you set up your day-to-day, because I found that when we can kind of let go of the Monday to Friday establishment and the Gregorian calendar establishment and setting goals by a certain time or having deadlines by 5 o'clock on Friday, we're trying to fit in our creative work into this very rigid structure, which most often goes against what our body is asking for and what our creativity requires in order to be at its peak or even just flow in a way that feels more natural. And so I've been researching interperiods since 2016, and I've tried different methods in my own cycles, and my cycles have smoothed out as well from just having an awareness of them. And so in this video, I'm just going to go through the different phases and offer some perspective of what happens if you overlay these phases to your daily operations and what this can do for you in your business and just your own sense of personal equanimity and connectedness with yourself and also with the universe. If you want more on what I'm talking about here, I created an interactive content library, and there's a link to that below. So I'm going to start at the follicular phase, and the reason for this will kind of come full circle as I go through all the phases, but the follicular phase is right after you have stopped bleeding. So the way I see the first couple days of the follicular phase is re-emerging into the world. Ideally, during menstruation, you've had the opportunity to go within and pull back your energy to a more internal world. And so in the follicular phase, as we head towards ovulation, which happens 14 days after your first bleed, this is a very creative time. If you think about ovulation being when your egg is at its prime to receive, if procreation isn't your intention, then directing that creative energy into your creative work, into your work in general, into any projects, even into recreating yourself, is perfect during the follicular phase. So this is a great time for initiating new projects. It's a great time for planting seeds or doing creative ideation, like anything that lets your mind kind of run free. And when I think of the follicular phase, I think of mind mapping and extrapolating on ideas, particularly those that you receive during menstruation, because that's a really psychic time. And so in this phase, the follicular phase, there's so much to draw upon. Your energy levels will begin to increase as you get towards ovulation, so it's like a steady increase. And I don't mean steady in like a progressive up level on the chart, because every day is different and there are going to be different factors, astrological events even, that will influence your energy levels. But on the whole, if you're taking care of yourself and looking after yourself and listening to what your body is needing, then these moments of energy bursts, really focused attention, can take you so much further than if you were trying to do this by this day and then build on it the next day and then build on it the next day. If you work in these energy bursts when you have them, then you're kind of like stepping into that flow state where you're connected to the cosmos and to divine inspiration. And then what comes out of you in an hour could be so much more potent than what you could spend a week trying to force yourself through. And so that's the whole idea with periods, brainwaves and astrology, is that when you can kind of create this sync with your body and your cycles and the cosmos in general, then you work with the energy when it's there and you rest when it's not, and there's no shame in that, and then it creates this beautiful balance. So the follicular phase to me is all about creative energy and directing that energy in things that really light you up and give you more energy, like this beautiful feedback loop. As you get closer to ovulation, so as you get closer to that peak of estrogen, you might feel like you have a lot of energy circulating in the body. And at this time, this is perfect for doing anything regarding self-care or body work, or basically just gifting yourself attention. You'll start to feel it, like you'll start to feel this energy, like you want to go out, you want to be seen, you want to do something, you want results, this kind of pent-up energy that you're kind of buzzing. And so being aware of the fact that this is very normal at this stage, then you can tend to it in a way that's really productive. It could be that if you're teaching workshops or giving a presentation around this time, the energy will be available to you and you will feel more dynamic and assertive and giving of your energy, because it's circulating, it's charging your aura. So that brings us to ovulation, and this is prime time in your cycle. One of the guest contributors to the PBA library is my naturopath friend Katie Schilling, and she imparted a pearl of wisdom upon me where she told me that this phase of the cycle is as important as the bleed, because what's happening here on a biological level is that you're kind of creating the conditions for what you're expecting in 3 months from now. And this is a very biological process, but if you think about the idea that if you were to create a baby at this time, if that was your intention, there's that 12-week period where you're nursing the idea of a baby and you're nursing the baby itself, essentially. But, it's like a really sensitive time for that to come to fruition. And so if creating a baby isn't your intention, but if it's creating a new avenue for yourself, a new framework, a new setup, in this very short phase of ovulation, when you are aware of it and when you can really tap into the energetic nuances of this phase and what it is actually, what you're capable of inside creating in terms of a baby, but then transferring that into something else that you want to grow. This time being so energetic and so dynamic, if you can focus your attention on what you need and what you really want for yourself and what would be the conditions that would make you thrive in the same way it'd make a baby thrive, and what would benefit those around you, like the extensions of you in that same way, then what you're doing is you're creating this emotional and mental and energetic atmosphere within you. And then as the time goes on, as those 3 months goes on, then you sort of start to see this shift in your outer world. And if you think about it, you've got an ovulation phase in every cycle, like how many seeds you can plant over the long term and what this potency has to offer you. It's so easy to think dismissively of our periods or the different phases as insignificant, but there is seriously so much magic there. And it astonishes me that what happens when you tune into it, you have like a whole nother world. It's like having a whole spell book at your disposal, and being able to tap into this, it can really change things. So after the ovulation moment, we go into the luteal phase, and this is where your hormones start to drop. So we're no longer reaching a peak. Ovulation is the peak, and now we're coming down, in a sense, preparing to shed during menstruation. And so the luteal phase, in my eyes, is changing gears, pulling down a bunch of gears to a very different pace. Because we're not so charged up on estrogen and that testosterone peak that comes at ovulation, these levels start to go down, and so the mood is tempered. And so this is a good time for basically tying up loose ends from that cycle and getting your ducks in a row and doing any editing or banking, doing the analytical tasks, because during this time there is a harmony between the left brain and right brain, and so you might get a burst of energy where you just can totally do all your invoices in this small batch instead of spreading them out and doing them every Wednesday kind of thing. And so when you batch like that in the luteal phase for these kinds of less creative things, just like the kind of more mundane type activities, you can kind of do them so much quicker without feeling like, oh, I wish I was creating. But you can make these moments really beautiful by making them kind of ritualistic, or at least pleasant to the senses, by doing things like lighting candles and having nice music and essential oils in a diffuser, or just dimming the lights in a way that you make it really a sensual experience. This goes too for kind of getting the house in order, or just getting your life in order, doing the washing. This is like preparing the nest, because then if you think about the next phase being menstruation, in that phase, the ideal scenario is as much comfort as you can create for yourself, and that might mean only 2 hours a day, but in those times you can receive such incredible psychic insight because the veil to the other realms is so thin during menstruation. And so in the luteal phase, just preparing yourself, knowing that that is an opening that's coming up, and just getting everything in order, tying up all old projects, sending off the emails, maybe doing out of office if you can, if you want to, or at least just letting people know that you're booked out that next week, so that you have the time and that you don't have people's expectations on you to reply straight away or anything like that. It's kind of like preparing for you, you know? And it's really important during this phase as well to work with those energy bursts. So it might be that you do one thing in a day during the luteal phase, like seriously one thing, send one email, and honestly, that's fine because if you do that, then the next day you might be able to power through like 13 things and it won't feel hard. So what the idea of this is that you're actually listening to your energy levels and starting to tune into them, because when we push past what we physically have to offer, what we mentally or emotionally have to offer, or energetically, then we create disharmony within us and we are not listening to ourselves. And when we do that, we are cut off from our intuition, and that is a huge price to pay. So trust the energy, trust what you feel, and set yourself up to win. So during menstruation, as I mentioned before, this is a very psychic time. Even if you have a very hectic schedule, if you could book the first day off, that will do so much wonders to you down the track per cycle. If that's all you can do, having that first day off is telling the universe, I matter, this is serious, and I'm taking this time for me to be with me and my body, and that's just the end of it basically. If you can arrange your schedule so that you don't have any one-on-one meetings during this time, that's really best for follicular phase and maybe the first part of the luteal phase, because at that time you just have more energy, and also like as we go into the luteal phase you can communicate really well because of that left and right brain coherence. But during this phase, menstrual phase, your energy, that's kind of like with PMS, how you tend to get angry is because you're subconsciously pushing people away, because you need your own space, because you need to be in your own energy to feel like what you need to learn and what you need to know, and there's all this insight there for you. But when we are booked up, or when we are forcing ourselves to push through and meet with other people or get certain projects done, that's just denying that sense of wanting to be with ourselves and just feel the physical and somatic sensations that are running through you. So during this time, do what you can to receive, whether that be information from your guides or from the universe. Taking notes is really great, that you can then kind of extrapolate on during the follicular phase, your creative phase. Any kind of trance stuff that just helps you come out of the high beta waves of stress and logical thinking. This menstrual phase is perfect for doing like guided meditations or theatre work with the slower brain waves, the imagination. You know, the subconscious just going on vision quests is ideal here, and you can get such great insights for projects that you want to do next, or ways that you can fixed your processes in your current operations, this is an awesome time to just pull back so that when your energy starts to rise, you are more refined in what you're going for. And speaking in a physical sense, we're shedding here, so letting go of old stuff, old belief, old limitations, or just old ways of being really in your business. You can let that go with your bleed. And as you do this, as you kind of build on this each cycle, you kind of start to notice that your energy is spiraling upwards, and that's the magic of the menstrual cycle. And I know this isn't going to be for everyone, and everyone has different dynamic work situations, but hopefully there is something here that is useful for you. And if you want more information, check out the links below, because that resource has a lot more themed around these concepts. So thank you for listening, and I wish you well.